All right, good evening. Welcome to the Oconee County Board of Commissioners Town Hall meeting on emergency medical services. Today is Thursday, March 26th, 2026. The format of our town halls are as follows. I'll make a few comments on stuff I want to talk about for a minute, and then we'll make a presentation on EMS. Then we'll have our citizen comment and question period. The procedure for that is you'll come to the podium, state your name and address, and direct your comment or question to the Board of Commissioners. So this is the biggest crowd we've had at a town hall in quite some time. So I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about SPLOS, which is coming up on your May 19th ballot. So we're estimating between $75 million and $90 million of collections during the time of the SPLOS. It'll run from October 1st, 2027 till September 30th, 2033. We'll be splitting the proceeds from that with our cities. Watkinsville received between 5.8 and 7 million. Bogart 2.3 to 2.8. North High Shoals will receive 990 to 1.1 million, and Bishop will receive 572,000 up to 714,000. We've got all our money allocated out in different buckets. Our first bucket is for GO bond payment. This will pay off bonds for Oconee Veterans Park. And also the GO bond for the administrative building, that's $13.2 million. That's something that would come from general fund if we didn't have SPLOST. Water and sewer facilities, this is for renewal and replacement of lines and other infrastructure. That's $5 million to $6.25 million. Also, farmland preservation. This allows for permanent easements on farmland to prevent future development on the property. According to the Athens Land Trust, Oconee County has protected 924 acres under this program. Our most recent easement closed early in 2025. We're asking for between 600,000 and 750 on that one. Emergency services, facilities and equipment. This is for replacing tankers, fire trucks, EMS vehicles, renewal and replacement on fire and medical equipment, and any fire station upgrades. We just got our price on our next engine, which will be roughly $1.1 million for that purchase. So again, that would come from general fund if we did not have the SPLOST program. We also have several historic and scenic properties: Eagle Tavern, William Daniel House, and Central Schoolhouse. We use money from SPLOST to keep these buildings preserved. Right now, we're focusing on the Central Schoolhouse. We have an architect looking at the building to make sure it's structurally sound and trying to figure out ways we can create an environment so the building will get used. General county facilities, this is for renewal and replacement projects on county buildings such as roofs, security and access upgrades, as well as air conditioners, 5.2 to 6.5 million, which again would be general fund expenses. Parks and Rec gets 39% of the SPLOST for 2027. We have possible projects for that is renewal and replacement projects at existing parks, such as Herman C. Michael. The lights there were the ones that were put up originally. Fencing, stormwater management upgrades. When that park was put in, the standards were not as high as they are now, so we need to do some corrections there. Upgrades to playground, signage, and also parking. And the same type of list of projects for Bogart Sports Complex. And then some for Oconee Veterans Park, depending on how much these others cost us. Heritage Park, we have some money set aside there to continue the master plan development at Heritage Park. And then we also have money set aside for the continuation of the master plan for the Wendell and Betty Dawson Park, which is located behind North Oconee High School. Total for the parks is 24 million to 30.8, depending on collections. Public safety radio system. We need technology upgrades on our radio system, radio replacements, as well as pager replacements, and we're asking for $6 million. Again, this would be a general fund purchase without SPLOST. And our sheriff's office patrol vehicles also come from SPLOST. Based on the number of employees they have on frontline positions, we need to replace 9 vehicles per year to keep the fleet at its peak. And we're asking for $4.1 to $5.1 million on that replacement over that time period. Again, that used to come out of general fund until it got moved over to SPLOST. All right, now we'll move into our discussion on EMS. We're going to start out talking a little bit about a brief overview of EMS in the state of Georgia. The Official Code of Georgia, Title 31, Chapter 11, establishes EMS law in Georgia by defining the scope of EMS operations, outlining ambulance and personnel licensing, and establishing a trauma network structure. Regulatory oversight for EMS rests with the Department of Public Health. The department is led by Dr. Kathleen Toomey, and Dr. Toomey is appointed by Governor Brian Kemp. Licensing, compliance, and enforcement of statewide EMS standards rests with the Department of Health, and the Department of Health also manages the Office of EMS and Trauma. Georgia Administrative Code 511-9-2 defines EMS regulations related to EMS personnel certification standards, requirements for ground and air ambulance, reporting and disciplinary framework, and also ambulance zoning plans. The Georgia Administrative Code also calls for EMS advisory councils to provide policy input, planning support, and assist in protocol development. Regional EMS councils coordinate local EMS systems. The state is divided into 10 regional EMS zones. Region 10 consists of the following counties: Barrow, Clark, Elbert, Greene, Jackson, Madison, Morgan, Oconee, Oglethorpe, and Walton. Each county is considered an EMS zone. Each EMS region is to have a regional EMS zoning plan, which is based primarily on the considerations of economy, efficiency, and benefit to public welfare. Under certain conditions, the regional council may make recommendations to the EMS zoning recommendations for changes to the EMS zoning plan. The final decision on changes rests with the Director of Department of Health, Dr. Toomey. Now we're going to talk a little about the EMS, and we're going to start with a little history of EMS in Oconee County. The designated 911 zone providers for Oconee County is Trinity St. Mary's Hospital, as well as Piedmont Athens Regional Hospital. Both hospitals provided EMS service to Oconee County for no charge via a hospital-based ambulance service. Together, both hospitals decided to end the hospital-based model for EMS for Clark and Oconee County. In 2008, the hospitals contracted with National EMS to provide services for both counties. The contract provided National EMS a $400,000 annual subsidy that was paid by the hospitals. The contract also created an oversight committee with representatives from each hospital, each county, and national. The purpose of the committee was to periodically review and evaluate the performance of National EMS. The committee was empowered with the authority and responsibility over the following, which is to investigate and respond to all complaints, inspections, or investigations arising in connection with National's provision of services under the agreement. Also to annually review billing rates, as well as billing and collection efforts and policies. And then to review reports related to the National provision of service under the agreement. National was a family-owned EMS service based out of Conyers at that time. The hospitals also had the option to release the EMS zone after 3 years of operation with National. In 2013, though, Clark, Oconee, and the hospitals entered into a memorandum of understanding, and the hospitals agreed to remain the designated 911 zone providers, and each county agreed to contribute $100,000 each to the National EMS subsidy. Fast forward to July of 2018, National EMS sold a Priority Ambulance, which is a portfolio company of Enhanced Equity Fund. A year later, in 2019, a legal opinion was issued stating the Oversight Committee did fall under the Georgia Open Records meeting requirements. Based on HIPAA concerns, the committee did not meet after that opinion was issued. So the Oversight Committee effectively was defunct. A little bit about the challenges we're facing in Oconee. This graph here is for Priority 1 response times. A Priority 1 response is a lights and sirens response for life-threatening emergency. While I fully acknowledge that response times is not the only factor to consider, the trends do indicate some change in operation or performance. As you can see, the trend line was downward from 2015 to 2019. The sale to Priority occurred in July of 2018. Then 2020 hit and COVID disrupted the world. Call volumes dropped dramatically during the beginning of the pandemic. During that time, Priority laid off many employees as the volumes dropped off. Then as the call volumes started moving back up, they were short-staffed and had trouble filling positions. In addition, wait times at hospitals also increased dramatically. And y'all remember that time when it was just a tough time in the medical field altogether. So in 2021, I pushed for national improve response times in Oconee County and worked to get answers on service complaints we were getting. We requested pricing on an additional ambulance for Oconee County. Once we received the pricing, we were advised even if we wanted to pay for another truck, they couldn't provide the staffing for it at that time. And at that time, I spent time investigating a county-based EMS. However, the ambulance production times were over 2 years out, so we had no path forward at the time. Now, if you look at the graph, you'll see an upward trend again from 2023 to 2024, and again for 2024 to 2025. And again, these are priority one response times. A national report for the entirety of 2024 shows there were 239 priority one calls with a response time over 12 minutes and 59 seconds. We had a national report generated for the first quarter of 2025 that shows 112 priority one calls with a response time over 12 minutes and 59 seconds. You had almost in one quarter, or really half of what you had, half of a whole year occur in one quarter in 2025. Detailed spot checks were performed on a sample of the Q1 2025 report that suggests Oconee assigned ambulances were providing non-Oconee County services during those times when the 12-minute 59 seconds was exceeded. When we say non-Oconee service, tends to be one of the following: that an ambulance is on a call outside of Oconee County, or the 911 unit is on a inter-facility transfer or non-emergency transport outside Oconee County. We first started hearing concerns of billing and collection processes in September of 2024. Crazy numbers that were well outside charges for our region started popping up everywhere. In 2024, a fatal automobile accident occurred the day after Thanksgiving. No action was taken by National for the fatality, no treatment, no transport. The family received a bill of roughly $3,600 for that, for showing up on scene that day. Oconee County itself received a bill from National in the amount of $4,892.24 for transport of an injured firefighter. While many issues were corrected after my involvement, it did take more than one phone call to get things corrected. And many citizens that we don't even know about experienced the similar billings and were actually turned over to collections. The same rates of billing are still occurring today. National EMS does have an internal quality assurance program. Since the Oversight Committee stopped meeting, no outside review of quality assurance occurs on behalf of Oconee County. As we have tried to address concerns directly, senior management have claimed HIPAA, and no further conversations occurred on those concerns or complaints. Our citizens deserve to have accountability outside the corporate structure. The latest VP of Operations for National started in March of 2024 and left in December of 2025. I believe that's about the third VP in a 4-year span. During a presentation in 2025 in this very room, the Board of Commissioners was advised by the VP of Operations that National was profitable and one of the top performing divisions of priority ambulance. Prior to the presentation that day and continuing after that presentation and during our regular scheduled meetings, National was pushing to double the subsidy paid by counties and hospitals. The VPO even stated to me at one point that all parties other than Oconee County had agreed to double their subsidies. There was also mention of contract negotiations related to the service level agreement that the hospitals have with National. And I did object to any changes in the service level agreement that Oconee County was not involved with drafting. As we discussed response times with the VPO, he advised that Oconee County actually needed an additional truck in the county, and we received a cost of the additional truck would be between $700,000 and $800,000. At that time, I advised the VPO that we'd be taking a second look at self-performing EMS in Oconee County. Based on the challenges just discussed in as we're going through our second round of investigating a county-run EMS, two clear goals came to the forefront. First, we must become the designated 911 zone provider for Oconee County. Second, we must have local control and oversight over EMS operations in Oconee County. The way to achieve these goals is to have a county-run EMS. And it's my recommendation to the Board of Commissioners and citizens of Oconee County to create a county-run EMS and to seek to become the designated 911 zone provider. So what would an EMS system look like in Oconee County? First, we'll talk about our call volume. Call volume for medical calls is just under 4,000 for the year 2025. Calls range from requests for blood pressure checks to lift assist to cardiac arrest and trauma incidents. Part of my daily routine is to review activity reports that show the activity of Oconee Fire Rescue for medical and fire. We also requested a PHIP report from the Department of Health for the time period covering March 11th to March 1st, 2024 to March 31st, 2025. The PHIP is a report that contains information provided to ambulance services when an EMS zone becomes available. The data from the PHIP report reveals Oconee County needs 3 24/7 trucks and 1 peak hour truck for weekdays. In addition to the PHIP, I performed a detailed review of all medical calls for September and October of 2025. Data for this review was obtained from CAD reports produced by the Sheriff's Office 911 Center, and data from the CAD confirmed conclusions from the PHIP report review. As we start up a system, our focus will be 100% on 911 readiness. No non-emergency transports will take place. Policies and procedures will be developed by the EMS director related to standby and dedicated truck assignments for community events. Billing duties will be awarded through a medical billing company based on a competitive RFP process. EMS structure, we'll have an EMS director reporting to the county administrator or designee. I'll be the designee during the startup process of this program. We'll have 1 supervisor per shift. Supervisors will operate a med unit with the EMT will staff the supervisor truck for peak hours 7 days per week. Paramedic and EMTA will staff 3 24/7 trucks. No additional office staff or support staff are recommended at this time. Our medical responders will remain under Oconee County Fire Rescue in order to maintain eligibility for pension program. We have met with a pension representative and have a structure that is in full compliance with pension rules. Medical responders will functionally fall under the supervision of the EMS director for training, quality assurance, and compliance. Will rest with the EMS director, and the EMS director will work with the fire chief to address any issues, if any occur. My goal is to create a stronger medical responder program by creating a stronger relationship with EMS providers in Oconee County. Number of trucks. At startup, we would have 5 Type 1 ambulances, 3 24/7 operating daily, 1 24/7 with a supervisor. It would also be fully staffed for 12 hours with EMTA, and we'll have 1 truck in reserve for breakdowns or other problems that may occur mechanically. As volumes dictate, supervisors will move to a QRV, and the Med Unit 4 will operate 24/7 daily with paramedic and EMTA. We expect a unit hour utilization based on committed time to fall between 0.2 and 0.26, based on an average time on task of 1.5 to 2 hours. Typically, if you're at a 0.15 or below, your system is likely overstaffed or highly reliable. 2.5 to 2.5 to 0.3 is ideal for reliability and economic efficiency. At over 0.4, it indicates strain and possible response reliability drops. Locations of the trucks, depending on the timing of startup, the med units will likely have to be at fire stations in the beginning. We do have property in Watkinsville and on Malcolm Bridge Road that are available for EMS stations. The vast majority of our medical calls are in Station 1 and Station 8 territory. And then we get into the cost of operations. We provided the state-produced PHIP report to a medical billing company for analysis. The PHIP reported 36% of patients transported had private insurance coverage. The billing company questioned that percentage and discounted the private insurance numbers to match similar counties in our area. Based on their analysis, an estimate for revenue came in just under 1.5 million. In addition, during the detailed analysis of call data for September and October 2025, I calculated an estimated revenue as well, and my number came in at 1.5 million in revenue. Expenses based on the EMS structure provided earlier show a total expense will be at 3.4 million. 3.4 million includes employee costs with benefits, insurance coverage, estimated M&O costs for a full year of operations. So the net cost to the taxpayer is 1.9 million. During conversations with the VPO, an initial cost provided by National for a similar setup was $2.4 million. Priority also just recently bid on a contract in Barrow County. And based on that submittal, we estimated that based on our setup that we're trying to get to, the cost would be $2.354 million. And that's estimated on the charge per available hour of unit in Barrow County. We will be able to cover this cost with no millage increase. However, a millage rate reduction may be difficult for this year. We're currently working on the budget and don't have our final numbers in yet. So if the board decides to move forward, our next step would be completing the hiring process for our EMS director. We had 4 applicants for this job. 3 applicants were interviewed. The 4th did not respond to request for an interview. Also, we would move forward with VOC approval of a contract for the purchase of ambulances, as well as approval of a contract for the purchase of ambulance equipment. We then move into the setup of operational infrastructure. And most importantly, we have to work with our local and regional partners to achieve the goals of Oconee County. Now, I've met with all our local partners, including Athens, Clark County, Trinity St. Mary's Hospital, as well as Piedmont Athens Regional Hospital. All parties are supportive of Oconee County's goals for EMS. This presentation, as well as documents I mentioned in here, are actually on our website at this time for your review. We're now ready to move into the citizen comment portion of the comment and question time. Again, if you have a comment or question, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and direct any comments to the Board of Commissioners. The floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Heather Picklesheimer. I was born and raised and grew up here and still live in Bishop. I will say that I have worked in healthcare my whole life. worked in the ERs, urgent cares, doctor's offices, all around here in Watkinsville, Oconee, Jefferson, Athens. To be transparent, my husband still works in the ER. Multiple family members work in the ER. Several other hospitals. I've got family that works at National. And as a resident of Oconee, I think it's great that, we're trying to better our county, but having seen both sides, I can say that I know that we love to say our bill was this, and throw it at, National. It costs this much, this much. Well, I can say, my husband currently works at Piedmont, and I have a bill from Piedmont. I've made 3 calls to get that bill corrected. It's still not corrected. If that's the only thing we're going to be angry about, you want to say they charged me $3,000 for this ride. Well, one, was it truly an emergency that you called for? Was your life worth $3,000 that day if it was an emergency? I would much rather pay the $3,000 bill than pay the taxes every year for a whole county EMS service. We also talk about the times going up and up. Well, I would like to see those numbers. Was that time that took 12 minutes an actual priority 1 call, meaning it needed to be lights and sirens? And where was it at in this county? Are we talking about Farmington? You say we could start with 5 trucks. Okay, well, Friday nights, there's 2 trucks gone to a high school football game right there. Right now, you also mentioned that during COVID, the times in the hospital were up. Just last night, the ER had a 5-hour wait time. So when your EMS trucks went to the hospital, if it was a true emergency and they didn't just drop the patient off in the waiting room, they stood on the wall when they came in and had to wait on a room. So 2 trucks are at a high school. If another truck just left, they're sitting on a wall in the EMS center or in the ER. Now you've got 2 left for the county. Now you've got all the assisted livings that we keep building and keep building. Every time somebody falls, or I can say working in an urgent care in a doctor's office, I've called EMS multiple times because a patient came in and it wasn't appropriate for the urgent care. There I go calling National. They took the patient. Now you're down to, say, 1 truck for your county. So if you live all the way out in Farmington or all the way down 15, almost to Greene County line, is it not, expected that it might take 12 minutes to get to you? So is it a true emergency? Was that lights and sirens that took them that long? So I have a lot of concerns, and I know that people get angry about what their bills were. Well, one, I would say step back, make a phone call, try to talk it over with people. That's usually what you're supposed to start with. But if it was a true emergency, is it not worth paying the bill and moving on? Do you really want to pay the taxes every single year? We also, in building 316 is going to be growing forever, it seems. Just the other day, there was an accident there. If that truck had been patient loaded, and it wasn't a National truck, I'll start with that. If there had been a patient on there, that would be 3 ambulances right there. 1 to get the patient off that truck, 2 more to get the other 2 patients that were injured that day. So that's 3 trucks right there. So you're talking about starting with 5 trucks. Well, that's 3 gone to a 316 accident right off the rip. And let's hope it's not on a Friday night football game, because your other 2 are at a game. I also saw people commenting on how they got angry for their transport bills from one hospital to another. Well, is our county going to cover that, or are they still going to be transported by National? Is Oconee going to take you from Piedmont to Grady? I doubt it. You're still going to get a bill from National, because they are the ones that, while you've got all these county trucks that don't do transports, National is the one that comes at 3 a.m. and picks your child up and takes it to CHOA, or takes your grandpa to Grady to retrieve a blood clot. So that's just my opinion.
I will say that the 1259 report was run on priority 1 calls. And this report comes from National. It's not our report. And again, we will not, if a county EMS starts up, there will be no non-emergency transports done.
I am Margaret Hale. I live on Salem Road in Farmington, Georgia, Watkinsville address. I know the microphone's not very loud. You can turn it up. Of course, he's deaf, so, you know, and that's my fault. Is that better? Okay. Let me start by telling all of y'all thank you for taking the time to talk with me about this issue, and some of y'all met with me. I first found out about this when the EMS director job description was posted on our website. So let me start by saying I'm really disappointed in the lack of transparency of this. This is putting the cart before the horse. I mean, there's been no discussions, no public input until tonight, really. And it's such an important thing for the safety of every resident in Oconee County. And I do appreciate y'all having the meeting tonight. I think it was needed. I've gone back through commissioner meetings to see if I missed an announcement, because that can happen. I've kind of stayed out of politics since I left. It was loosely described in the budget and the SPLOST presentation. And then on the January 27th meeting, the commissioner asked if the $110,000 moving from admin to EMS was going to national, and he was told it was for a potential project. It looks like it was for a job for the county. I did ask you when I met with y'all about the budget, and I know you can't have a concrete budget with something you're planning and building from scratch up. I know SPLOST will cover some of the objects that are going to be in this budget if it's approved. I kind of looked at 4 ambulances and 2 with a backup, just because nobody could tell me what we were talking about at that time, how many. 24-hour shifts, 24 on, 48 hours off. I figured 4 trucks, 2 as backup for maintenance and equipment might be needed. With no benefits, you're looking at, I figured 1.8 million yearly. Now, one of the first things I learned when I took office, this is a bottomless pit to have your own ambulance service. And I've done some research, looked at some of the other counties. Some of the insurance companies have went out of business, so they never paid. And that's not, it's not the most important thing for our citizens, but it is important as far as our taxes. I also asked some of y'all, if I'm transported, are you going to send me a bill? Because technically I've paid for the truck, paid for the staff, paid for the equipment, paid for the gas with my taxes. So realistically, that's double dipping on any family member that gets a bill from the county. You know, I've talked to a lot of people. I understand the cost is a huge problem for citizens. I mean, that's a shocking bill. You've just got out of the hospital, so you've got a hospital bill, now you got an ambulance bill. But it's not just an Oconee and national issue. In January, House Bill 961 was introduced at the state capitol. It's known as the Surprise Billing Consumer Protection Act. It deals with the pricing of ambulance services, in-service and out-of-service networks. So it's a state issue, and it looks like the state House and Senate's now looking at it to address it. You know, another comment I received was, we'll get better care with our own ambulance service. Well, if that's the case, then let's don't hire anybody from national, because obviously they're not giving good care, according to this person. And I know for a fact that's not true. I've been on the receiving end of an ambulance, and I've worked when I was a volunteer with national. And I've never seen one of their staff members give inappropriate care. They've always been very careful with their patient and their family. You know, another comment was the response times. And this is one of my major concerns. You know, I've looked at, if we have 4 ambulances in service, 2 trucks are at medical or rec calls, or sitting at a football game on a Friday night. I know we have mutual aid agreements with other counties, but what happens when that county doesn't have a truck to send us? What's their response time going to be? Because they're not going to just send us a truck to sit here. you know, what's our backup plan for that? Because that could be life or death for somebody. So, you know, those are just a few of the concerns that I have. I know some of us have talked more about it. I am asking this board, if you're going to move forward with this, to create a committee of citizens that will help guide this. This is too big of a project for one or two people to handle on their own. I do disagree with staff. You are going to need administrative staff to file reports, keep up with training records, medical reports. So we might start off with no staff, but you're going to end up with staff to back up your EMS director. For the well-being of our citizens, I hope you'll think long and hard about this. And if we've got a problem with National, there are other companies out there. We can put it out to bid. I just don't think this is the best avenue for us to go. And I do appreciate your time. Thanks.
Just a few things. I guess part of the issue with the billing is there's no oversight over the billing procedures and collection procedures. Prior to 2024, we never heard any discussion about anything related to billing. So there's no oversight there. And I agree 100% with you. There's a lot of hardworking, dedicated members of the national team. This is not a bash at all from where I'm sitting. And response times, the model for non-emergency transports to make up revenue. Like I said, when I go and look at some of the exception times that are outside the standards that were set up with the contract, large majority of the time that is related to either being on a call outside of Oconee County or doing non-Oconee County. There can be 3 or 4 hours of no calls prior to that, having to call a truck from Athens to come out and run a call for us. So that does impact response times. Games, about football games kind of come up again. The EMS director will come up with a policy on standby events and which ones we can do and can't do. Our focus will be 100% on readiness for 911 calls. And you also mentioned other companies, and I guess that's really why I'm saying that we need to be the 911 zone provider, because we're not able to decide that at this point. We don't have the right to choose to go to RFP or to require certain things. It's a combination of Athens Regional, us, and the provider. So ultimately, we have to get the zone, and to get the zone is I just touched the top of the surface of this thing with the EMS system in Georgia. The ultimate decision on who the 911 provider is in Oconee County goes to the Department of Health director. And there's certain rules they have to follow if a zone comes open. So if the zone were to come open tomorrow, we'd have to try to bid for it when we didn't have a single piece of equipment. Or we'd have to go find somebody we don't know to partner with to try to get the zone. So it's a big, giant catch-22 on getting that zone at some point. When zone providing came up in our previous discussions with the VP at that time, he just flat said if the zone came open, National would bid for the zone, go in competition to be the 911 provider of record in direct competition with the county. So then we'd be in an even deeper situation if that were to occur. I understand your concerns. Money is a big deal. I get it. Having additional employees is a big deal. And based on the data provided by the state and, I mean, a detail looking at every single call for 2 months straight, when the dispatch occurred, whether the ambulance transported or not, we gave a certain amount of time for them to get back. And for September and October, for that entire month, 2 months, there would have been 4 times where the fourth peak hour ambulance would have had to stand up to run a call. It's gonna happen at some point where you're gonna have all 4 ambulances busy, and we'll have to stand up the 5th one. We will have protocols in place to make that happen, as well. Just a few comments back on that.
This was kind of quiet. I had a chance to be the guy in the stretcher Sunday morning and take the ride from Piedmont urgent care because they couldn't stop bleeding that I was having through the nose. Be honest with you, I never bled that bad, and I've been in some fights, played in ball games, but for an hour and a half, I couldn't stop the bleeding. And by the time I got to the hospital, I wasn't sure about what was going to happen. Bottom line was, when I got to the emergency room, there was 3 ambulances already there, and we're talking about before church starts. I think they were all national, and I'm not here to say anything about being negative toward the 2 ladies that were caring for me. But I am concerned that we provide the best we possibly can. I had a good experience. I didn't like bleeding so bad, but they were very good to me. They were very good to me. But again, I think there's things that I want to make sure that when you're picking up somebody and you're hearing the doctor say to you, I can't do anything for you. I got to get you to the emergency room. So do what you got to do. But I think it's more than, national. It could be a ABC company. I don't care. I don't have ties to it, but I do think the county has an obligation to look at that. I had a chance to look, and because we had some conversations, I'm in that bay and there's 3 ambulances. Well, somebody felt they needed to go to the emergency room. So I think that's my goal. And as I told Margaret and I are friends for a good while, so many things, what we do up here is a cash hit. To be honest with you. I don't want anybody to get locked up if they don't have to be locked up, but we got a jail and we pay for it. So I try to look, and I come from a public safety background, and so many things that we have in public safety, you don't use very often. That's just the way it is, but you want to make sure when it does happen, you got something that can get to it. Because you don't want firemen, you don't want EMTs, you don't want police officers, deputies, you don't want them getting hurt. So, I can understand looking at pricing and those kind of things, but I'm going to wager a bet that most of the 10 in the 10th district, most of those are county-run operations. You think that's right? I don't want to put you on the spot, but most of those counties, I think, run their own service.
Yeah, Barrow, I know is contracted.
But, we're in that same
Mayor.
boat with Clark County.
Yes.
So I don't think, it's not an emotional thing with me. It is to have the best service that we can do. The same is what we're trying to do, what we try to do with fire service. What we try to do to help Sheriff Hale is do the right thing, not emotional. To be honest with you, Sunday, I wouldn't have cared what the vehicle looked like. You know, they were trying, I hate to say that, they're sucking blood, kind of keep me from, choking. And I guarantee you, this is another thing you don't talk about. I guarantee they didn't clean up that ambulance in 15 minutes to get ready for another call. That's how bad I was bleeding. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that I think we have to look at. I appreciate folks, with their comments. But, in my position is to look at what's the best interest. Listen to our representatives who represent fire service or their law enforcement. What is the best thing we can do? Because I guarantee it's going to be expensive. It's going to be expensive. Those trucks do not come cheap. Now, I can remember somebody saying one time, just build him another house. It's cheaper. Remember that, Mark? You remember that? And so I just look at it, gosh, and I'll say this because I've been around long enough. There's, the county and Clark County got by easy because of the two hospitals. They were running the show. Neither county had to deal with it. Then those days started coming to a close. So now we're in a situation, we got to look at it. And whether, the young man that was killed, I'm pretty sure on this one, the young man that was killed out on 441, he was from the county I come from. And his daddy told me about that story, getting that deal. And it does matter. It does matter when you don't treat somebody decent, when they just lost a kid. It does bother me. So I think we got to look at all of that. You look at the money, but I tell you what, if this is how I see it, if we, let's say we stay private, it ain't going to be cheap. Anybody thinks that's crazy? It ain't going to be cheap. If we change the dynamics of it, okay, more vehicles, that's another, I'll bet you, 750,000. This stuff ain't cheap. But it might keep somebody alive, stuff that we buy. Hopefully that would be the case. So I understand, but it's not an emotional thing with me about what colored ambulances are. That makes no difference to me. I could care less. Can it move? You got good people in there? That's what I look at. Not worrying about, everything we do cost. We don't get too many freebies. So, but I do appreciate the service I got the other day. Because it was, it's just a bad day at the office. But I got to 5 o'clock. So I'm going to keep working on this, but it's not emotional to me. But I do think even if we go out to bid, it ain't going to be the same price. Anybody thinks that's crazy. It just ain't going to happen. Those people are in business to make money and to pay their shareholders. They ain't worrying about all this other stuff. They ain't worrying about that. They're worrying about bottom end. And they ain't going to do it for free. We got by my early years, and while I was policing at the university, the hospitals took care of it. We got used to it. That day was coming to an end. So that's all I'm going to say.
And I will say, based on the conversations with the senior management, the last one that was here. Related to we needing another truck and subsidy need to increase. So the $100,000 days are gone either way. And again, when discussing with him, the initial cost for National provide a similar setup to what we're talking about here was 2.4 million. And you can see priorities bid to Barrow County that came out to like 72, 78 per hour for available hours. When you apply that to the number of hours ambulances would be available in Oconee County, that would be $2.354 million. Again, I'll remind you that the website has presentation tonight. It has a copy of the second quarter 2025 report to Athens Clarke County, as well as the 2025 second quarter report to Oconee County. The Department of Health EMS rules as of February 2025 is our EMS MOU for 2013, 2016, and 2024. It also has an PDF on the calls over 1259 produced by National for 2024 and the first quarter of 2025, as well as the PHIP report that was produced by the state.
Mr. Chairman, can we hear some comments from the citizens, please?
My name's Mike Seabreen. I live at 1111 Crabapple Circle, Watkinsville. And I was transported by EMS in August of 24, 11 miles to Piedmont, and the bill was $4,200. I have Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance, so very good insurance. And the gap between what they considered reasonable and customary versus what EMS charges, again, $4,200. And we fought that, my wife and I fought that for well over a year. And, threatened our credit, going to collection, et cetera, et cetera. And we finally settled. Now we're paying on it. So many of you said beast not with the personnel. I've never been transported, so I don't have anything to compare it against, but, that was transported. I got to Piedmont okay. So technically, I imagine they're good people. But as far as customer service, et cetera, they were very unprofessional, et cetera. I mean, I don't have any good words to say about them. So your proposal tonight, I support 100%. If your Mercy Squad via the county is anywhere near the fire department, you've got a best-in-class fire department, volunteer-wise, and I think your Mercy Squad will be a mirror of that. So I support you, and I think you're headed in the right direction. Thank you.
Yeah, Ian Taylor, 1331 to Andrew Drive. Just to mirror what you said, I'm kind of in support of all of this. I think it's a pretty good idea, but there are some caveats. Chuck alluded to one. This is going to be expensive. I think the 1.9 million is a nice start, but you're going to be going deeper than that. But I don't think it should be just a money thing. The question I have is staffing. I mean, if the ambulance company is now having problems with staffing, how are we going to staff any better? Are we going to raid the EMS staff, or we've got a secret stash of people in there? This is something that the problem we have in our household. We have to hire medical people to help our son, and we just can't find them. They're just not there. So that's a question we have on there. There's going to be some overhead creep. There's going to be all sorts of other things. And then I think, John, you said who provides the oversight for Oconee County? Who provides the oversight to make sure that Oconee County is providing what they say they're going to provide, and that we are actually getting a good ambulance service. And then finally, liability. What happens? We said it's going to be emergency services only. What happens if somebody calls and we decide that it's not an emergency, and then it becomes an emergency, and we haven't sent somebody there? Then you're going to have some, quick lawyer is going to be out there saying, well, you should have sent somebody out there. Now we got to, there's going to be insurance costs and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure that's going to have to be put into there, and I'm sure you all thought of that, and it's just, I want to bring that up as well. But fundamentally, I think it's a good idea. It goes back to the quality control, right? We can control the quality, and like the gentleman just said, the fire department is great and all the rest of it. I just want to make sure that if we're going to do this right. And it's going to cost money, and people are going to whine about it, and I'm probably going to be one of them. But I think it's the right thing to do.
So related to the non-emergency transport, if you call 911, somebody's coming. If you want to go to the hospital, you're going to go. We talk about non-emergency transports. That would be taking somebody from one hospital to another, picking up and bringing somebody back to a nursing home or back to a home. There are a lot of companies out there that specialize in that. So we're going to pick up our patient, get to the hospital, get back in service as quick as possible to be ready for that next 911 call. That will be the total focus of the county run system. Oversight for the EMS will be this Board of Commissioners, and our accountability back to the public. So you'll have a direct line, just like you do now with town hall meetings. We have open meetings twice a month usually, where you can come, and of course, all of us are available by cell phone at any time. So we're very accessible. And right now that oversight is lacking because of the way the program's set up. And then staffing, if you look at our public safety pay scale, we're at the top for any county that's touching us around. The only public safety pay ahead of us is Athens Clarke County for their police department. They're only a few $100s more. We work really hard to get that number up to allow our sheriff deputies to get to attract sheriff's deputies, and also during trying to get SRO programs stood up to be able to recruit for that. And Oconee County is just a great place to be. So I don't think we'll have any major problems. We're not looking to steal a bunch of employees from everybody around or raid any of our neighbors' employees. I like to tell everybody, we don't want all your employees, we just want the best.
Commissioners, thank you all for hosting this meeting tonight. Chuck Williams, Old Watson Springs Road, Watkinsville, South Oconee. You just, Commissioner Chairman, answered one of my questions. That was the capacity for non-medical, non-emergency transport. I know you see those sort of transport vans around. I just didn't know if we were comfortable with what the capacity was in our area for that. And it sounds like you've already looked at that and you are comfortable with that. Commissioner Harden, there's a few of us in this room that are old enough to remember that the history goes back a little beyond what was on the slides and what Commissioner Horton referred to. And that's when the funeral homes in Athens ran the ambulance service in Oconee. Mark, you may remember that. Bridges and Bernsteins would take old hearses that had become a little too decrepit for funeral service and put a red light on top of them and a stretcher in the back. And I think they called it scoop and run or something like that. One employee from the funeral home that would haul you to the hospital. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Amory, that if the patient died and went back to that same funeral home, maybe the ride was free or something of that nature. There was something there. They had some sort of billing mechanism there. But I took one of those rides, about 65 years ago after a tractor accident that my brother and my dad and I were in, and I don't want to ride that again. Commissioner Daniel, you've talked about the 911 zone process and the state's role, I guess, in approving who provides ambulance service. And I'm a little unclear on the timing there. And if we're moving ahead now, looking at hiring people, whatnot, can you elaborate a little bit about where we either are or would be from a timing standpoint with making that request to the state? And you mentioned we might have competition if the state opens that up. Can you elaborate a little on that, please?
Yes. So I first want to say I'm definitely not old enough to remember the funeral homes running the EMS system. Um, but, so the way I think it's going to have to work, we currently have an EMS transport license. That would need to be updated. We need to get ourselves ready for service. And then approach two hospitals about getting a contract to actually run EMS in Oconee County. What would ultimately we'd like to see is a 24 to 36 month period for us to operate, show our ability to produce the kind of service that people are expecting. And then at that point, the hospitals will have the option to drop the zone, and that would create the competition there. I'm not saying we couldn't get it. If the hospital said tomorrow we're out, we could possibly get it, but it's kind of a hill to climb. It would be we'd have to be all hands on deck for a political coup kind of thing to get that done.
Thank you. Sort of related, maybe not. If the county moves ahead with its own EMS system, the timing of when that would be initiated and whenever our contract or National's contract runs out, any concerns that if National, quote, sees that they're losing the business, that we might have to deal with a fall off in service for any period of time until the county cranks up? How seamless do you think that transition could be?
I think it would be very seamless. I don't detect any revenge type strategy that would come from National at all.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Good evening, folks. Mark Capobianco, 1680 Main Mill Road. I appreciate you all taking on this challenge. Obviously, it's not an easy transition. From a financial perspective, if we had that sidewalk money from Highway 53, we'd be halfway there, I think. But anyways, speaking of money.
I thank you for saying that. My wife will be talking to you afterwards. Y'all can
appreciate it.
team up on me on that one for sure.
I've been running calls for a few years here with Oconee County. And I can honestly say that, early on with National, the relationship was a lot closer. The folks that worked there were, in general, you very, very rarely had issues. And if we did have an issue, we could go to Bruce and they'd make a call to National and the issue was resolved because they had a lot more stake in the game when they were a small business that lived, they had two brothers running it and so forth. Did they have challenges? Sure, no problem, as anybody would, but in general, and I'll go on record, a lot of the folks that carried over that have been in Oconee County for 10, 12 years now, they've been doing it, do a great job. And hopefully they can potentially be interviewed and, become part of the staff. But they've got some folks right now that don't need to be putting their hands on people because, the training and I've run code calls and various calls where it's somewhat frustrating when you're looking at a paramedic or advanced EMT that can't get a line started or can't get a tube in and so forth. So there's definitely, some challenges. In my honest opinion, if I had to run an ambulance service, I'd want to run it in Oconee County because it's really kind of in the big scheme of things, a pretty cake. You're not dealing with Clark County where every call is, a disaster waiting to happen. In general, the calls in Oconee County are pretty cut and clean. The clientele's pretty the type of folks that you want to be providing medical service to. So I think from that perspective, you won't have any issue hiring people that work with it. One thing I do hope that happens, and it's been talked about a lot in Oconee County, and it's not an easy nut to crack, but we need to get the 911 center transition so that as they're screening calls, we aren't sending the ambulance where we don't need to be sending it. And this may be the time that that transition can kind of take place. So I appreciate what you all are doing, and good luck with it.
Hey, my name is Heather Bailey. I live at 1121 Latham Drive. And disclosure, I also work at Piedmont Athens Regional. I worked in the emergency department for 13 years. And I've also worked with many of the national EMS providers, and I have a lot of respect for many of their providers. As a citizen of this county, though, I am concerned with the cost that is being incurred for, the emergency calls that are provided by national. So I do have a few questions. First of all, about the response times, like I know we talked about the national EMS, like response times for priority 1 calls. What are we hoping or expecting the response times to be in Oconee County with 5 trucks? And have we received data from other counties that run their own EMS services, like of similar sizes, to see what their average response times are right now?
So response times, we just use the state data to kind of look at, we do think we can improve them for a couple reasons. Is right now when the 911 call comes in, it has to be communicated over the national. Then at that point, you can initiate the call at the same, sending your fire, rescue, and first responders. In addition, placement of the vehicles. We know where most of our calls are, so having the correct number in the correct place, being ready for the 911 call would be an improvement anyway, as well.
Okay.
Can't say that we picked a number, this is our number.
The goal.
That'll be the EMS director looking at our history and our placement, but there will be a continuous improvement goal on response times starting day 1. And we feel like since we're totally 911 focused, we'll be able to see some pretty quick improvements. So we won't be busy doing something else unless it's another 911 call.
Okay. And then another question, what do you expect billing to look like? Because we've talked about the billing process with national a little bit. Are we expecting that y'all will bill insurance, or, because we've got Piedmont Athens Regional, we've got the University of Georgia, some really big employers who right now are not, our insurance is not being taken. What is that going to look like?
So based on the bill that was mentioned that's in the state legislature now, they're attempting to require insurance companies to pay 300%. I think it's 300 and something percent of Medicare. So we would be in line with that on the billing. The billing company will handle all that. They know how to code stuff. We're not even going to attempt to get into medical billing.
Okay.
And the billing company will also help us determine rates as well.
Okay. And then, so currently with national, we have 2 trucks that are dedicated to Oconee County. Is that correct?
So there's a truck at Station 8 over in Virgil Langford that covers that side of town, but they're also burst out to Clark County's west side from the mall back over. There's 2 trucks at the national headquarters. So they do go to Clark County if needed over there. So
Okay.
it's hard for me to get my head around how many actual national trucks we have.
At one time
Yeah.
in Oconee County. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hey, I'm J.W. Thaxton, live at 1920 Wire Bridge Road. Been a resident of Oconee County my entire life, and proudly served the fire department for the past 22 years. And I'm coming to you tonight supporting this decision and appreciate the hard work that's been put to it so far. I'm in full support of it. And I want to start too by saying that those comments mean nothing on the providers at National. There are some excellent paramedics and EMTs that work at National EMS, and I fully expect them to be Oconee County employees in the future. But this is a decision about local control. You have no control of our EMS system in this county. This is a decision about accountability for our citizens, to be able to hold the board accountable when the EMS service is not where it needs to be. You do not have that ability right now. You know, I think I would challenge any commissioner questioning the decision about whether to support this or not to speak with members of the Oconee County Fire Rescue Department. And I think that you will hear an overwhelming support for this effort. And I'd like to just end by anyone representing the fire department tonight that would support this, if you just stand and raise your hand. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just wanted to add one other thing, just because I know there was a fireman prior to JW, that mentioned there were some national providers now that he wouldn't want to touch them. I need to go back to, my grandfather is gonna be 90 this year, and he was the one 2 years ago that had the house fire that I think was the largest in Oconee history. So I'm not trying to bash fire because they stayed there forever and ever, but when they had to call in Morgan and they had to call in Green, National was there the entire day, taking care of every fireman from all of the counties there, giving them water, giving them cold towels, no bill. Okay. You know, now you've got this county, my grandfather's 90 and he's been put through the ringer trying to rebuild a house. Okay, but because his house went up in flames. 3 counties were there trying to put his house out. National stayed there all day, taking care of all 3 counties of firemen, giving them water, giving them wet towels. What can we do? So I think our firemen are great. I'll tell you, I can still see James Hale scaling the roof and Matt Toe going in to get every item he could for me. Okay, but I had a lot to say on some of them there that day, but I didn't because they were all just doing the best they could. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Robbie Atkins, 1237 Cambridge Square, Watkinsville. And as y'all may or may not know, I used to be one of the family owned and operated national EMS, still involved with the Priority family in a different role and capacity now. But a couple of things I'd like to kind of just clear up a little bit. First of all, for you, sir, with your Blue Cross Blue Shield, it is extremely unfortunate. Ambulance industries are trying to negotiate contracts with all these insurance companies, and they're bullies. And they're just bullies. And what their reasonable and customary is usually what Medicaid is or Medicare, which is less than what it costs the ambulance service to run. The new House bill that's coming up that they're trying to get 300 to 325% above Medicare would be huge for EMS. But you know, your billing is going to have the same issues. You cannot go out there and contract with every insurance company as an ambulance provider. They'll beat you to death. So that was number one. Number two, you said no employees will be taken. It will be a mass exit of employees from all around the county services. So it will, you know, there's very few EMTs and paramedics. COVID greatly disseminated the EMT and paramedic program. National's been trying very hard to do additional education along with Athens Tech and everybody else. But the EMTs and paramedics are just not available in this region or all over the state. It's, you know, it's one of Governor Kemp's big things as far as EMTs, paramedics, and nurses and doctors. There's just not a lot available. So it will put a deficit on others. The other thing I would encourage you to do, I'd encourage you to talk to the state. I'd encourage you to get the response times from National and compare them to your area response times around your county services that are running. I would put National's response times up against anybody else's response times and that they are now with county services. The other thing I'll say about National, because it was my company that my family owned and operated, they've been in business since 1976. The first in Georgia to be accredited through the Accreditation and Commission of Ambulance Services. So there is oversight going on nationally with National. They have accreditation process they go through every 3 years, and they just went through it again a year and a half ago, and got reaccredited. Only one of 17 in 1993 that went through accreditation in the United States, the only one in Georgia. There's only 3 in Georgia now, and none of those are a county-run service that are an actually accredited service. No different than accreditations that the fire goes to if they want to go through fire or police go through. Only 3 ambulance services in the state of Georgia accredited, National's 1. So, I would take that, and I would say, as an Oconee County citizen, your $100,000, you're exactly right, Mr. Horton, has been extremely cheap for an ambulance service. None of these county services around you are, they're in a huge deficit, and it'll be millions that the taxpayers will burden on that. And you're gonna take a 50-year company who's been here for 16 years and just kind of wash that aside. Understand, John, there's been some issues with National. It's just like with any other company. There's always issues, but they can always be worked out in a time frame. But you're going to start a service that you've never run before. It's not garbage collection. I mean, EMS is a difficult industry, and so you're going to start it up from fresh and take it away from a 50-year company. That's a big pill. I mean, I'm not saying obviously I'm a biased proponent of it because of my history in EMS. But I know what it takes to run an ambulance service and for a county to get started in one. I hope you got your eyes real wide open because there's a lot going on with it.
Can I ask you something?
Yes, sir.
Because you're representing the company
I'm not representing the company. I'm an Oconee County citizen.
that you work for,
I work for Priority Ambulance, not for National. Yes.
but who owns National?
Who owns National? There's a couple of owners, and it's also owned by a private equity firm. Of course, yeah, they're second largest in the United States in forest services in Georgia, and they're in 14 states. Yes, but the
What
employee.
I was getting to is your family doesn't own it anymore.
No, sir. No, sir. We're still involved. My sister still handles a lot of the billing aspect of the side for National and multiple companies in Georgia. Chairman was talking about ambulances, how hard they were to get, and they're still very hard to get. I'd be surprised if you ordered any, if you got any, truly got them, you'll be told you'll get them, truly get them within 18 months. But we got in, our CEO post COVID got so discouraged about not being able to get ambulances. We opened up our own ambulance manufacturing in Mississippi, and they asked me to go help and set that up. So we manufacture our own ambulances because it was taking so long, to get new vehicles. It was taking anywhere from 18 to 24 months to get new vehicles. And the ambulance industry the ambulance manufacturing industry is also just like the fire industry. Chief, your fire trucks are what, double? Double? Used to buy a pumper for 600, 700,000. Now it's 1.2 million. Same thing with ambulances. When I owned the ambulance service, I could buy an ambulance for right around 100,000. What's it going to cost you now? 200? Yeah. So, I mean, there's been a lot of changes. And so, yes, it's a lot on y'all to make that decision. And I just want to make sure you got all the information. I'm always available. Mr. Daniels has my number. If y'all have any questions for me, I can certainly answer anything.
Well, I would say, all the years that I was been on the commission where you dealt with your family, I always thought they were stand-up folks.
Thank you. But the lady back there running the operations, she's been in, was before we came in 2009. She's still the local one that runs the operations. They have had, there's no subject. They have had some difficulty with the main lead person to run National, but the local person running National for Clark and Oconee has been here since with National since 2009. I don't know when she started with Athens Regional.
Yeah, but part of the problem is the corporate structure, right? So she has people to answer to, and if Tracy were making the calls, I think things would be different.
Sure, they may have let you down in the beginning, but I think there's been a lot of changes that that have taken place. And you met the regional president. She's here tonight too. You met her. I think there's a lot of changes been taking place. And this will, devastate the economics of the ambulance industry, splitting the Athens, Clark and Oconee zones up. Don't take that for granted. It will hurt the economics of it. Thank you.
I guess a comment on the insurance is the bills being as high as they are when the insurance provider does select it. This is what I'm going to pay. Right now, our citizens are having to come up with huge amounts of money for the non-paid part of it. And they're very quickly turned over to collections. I know of one instance, gentleman and his wife had to be transported within 3 weeks of each other. So,
Right.
I think the bill, and it was close to $10,000 for the transport. I don't know if it was mileage or what that got it up
Sure.
to that high. He had the means to pay the ambulance company and was working with whoever at the corporate office trying to negotiate, hey, if I pay cash and that type of thing. Well, while that process is going on, he gets collection notices that he's been turned over to collection. And the collection company was also actually sending notices to his family members that lived in different households, one of them even in a different state. So when we talk about the billing price, that's why. I understand that insurance companies are going to pay what insurance companies pay. The amount that's left for the citizen to come up with is.
Sure. Well, first of
Accurate.
all, first year's deductibles. So anybody who's got insurance has got a deductible. Some reach 2,500 to 5,000. The ambulance industry's always been the first in on the bills. They always get their bills in faster than the hospitals because the hospitals, they're at the hospital. It takes several days. And so usually the ambulance bill gets eat up in the deductible no matter what it is. If the state goes ahead and passes a ambulance bill that is satisfactory, will certainly solve all that. Because it doesn't matter what the ambulance charges, because majority of the patients are Medicare and Medicaid, and you're going to get what you're going to get. To keep in mind, all your 911 calls, you're only going to transport about 60-65% of those. And then you're going to have self-pays, private pays that you're going to have to go have to deal with. Then you're going to have Medicare, Medicaid, and then the insurance companies. The insurance companies, so ambulance industry is no different than the hospitals. Our commercial insurance companies are what stand up and what hold the hospitals together. Hold the economics up in the whole system.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I got one more question.
Yes, sir.
No,
No.
Didn't it make better sense for, whether it's nationally made, to have Oconee County as a customer? If you take Oconee County versus our neighbor, which one would you rather have?
Which one you'd rather have?
Hmm?
They'd rather have them both because the economics work together both. But the problem with Oconee County is it's an affluent county, and it probably has a little bit higher percentage of commercial insurance people in the county, but the volume. So you're spending a lot of payroll dollars for readiness volume and your transports. With Clark County, there's a lot more volume. There's a lot more transport.
But less insurance.
No, I wouldn't say
No?
less insurance, a lot more Medicare and Medicaid. But you're still got volume. So, volume.
You're getting on, but, and I hate to get in it because kind of bringing it to us, is that Oconee County's always been more of a paying customer, wasn't it?
Yeah, but if you got fewer payers, if you got
But
fewer to
bolsters
pay.
up what you get over in Clark County.
Hmm?
But those that don't pay in Clark County, we're making up the difference, aren't we?
No, sir.
No?
No, sir.
Okay.
No. I mean, he just sat here and said you're going to spend about 1.2 million in what taxpayer dollars, and you've been.
But you're
spending
defending
100,000.
a company that you now work for.
Sure,
I represent the people.
absolutely.
We're just,
It's going to cost.
I said it's gonna cost.
I know. I appreciate what you said it would cost, but what you're saying, the revenue the revenue's not gonna change in Oconee County, whether you're running, whether you're running 3 ambulances or 4 ambulances. The revenue is gonna be the revenue. You asked me what the difference was, if I would wanna pick one or the other. Would prefer not to pick either, for either one, we do them both, but there's more volume, so if it's just like any other business. If you have more volume, you have more revenue.
We could probably discuss that further, but
Sure, absolutely.
be glad to, but I think what I've always known is that the Oconee County folks had the better insurance than what you're dealing with over in Clark County. And I'm not trying to bash them. There's a more of a small metro area and they're gonna have different kind of things. But the payers were good over here in Oconee County.
Absolutely, but
Okay.
but.
I understand about the volume and stuff, but the fact that you got people that are paying better, that helps your loss over in Clark County. So we can keep, these people don't want to hear me and you argue.
I will say we're cognitive too of the impact of Clark County, and we've had conversations with the mayor over there and trying to be very respectful of their what decisions they have to make and do it. So, and they've been very receptive to an understanding of what goal we got.
Sure. Thank you for your time.
All right. Any other questions, comments, or emotional outburst? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you for coming out. If you have any other questions, you're shy from the microphone, you're welcome to reach out to any of the commissioners here.